G'day and welcome to the Hidden Why podcast. Lee here, your host as always. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode. You're going to love it. This is episode 1160 and today I sit down with Dr. Majid Fotuhi. He's a neurologist, neuroscientist, author, and one of the world's leading experts on memory, brain vitality, and successful aging. In this episode, we explore how lifestyle choices can literally reshape the brain, reduce the risk of Alzheimer's, and help us stay sharp as we age. Dr. Fotuhi shares the science behind his brain fitness program, the power of neuroplasticity, and the 5 key pillars we can use to protect and improve brain health. Guys, all the links to Dr. Fotuhi will be in the show notes. You can find that at thehiddenwhy.com, episode 1160. Let me know what you think of this episode. And do me a favor too, if you're not already following us, make sure you click follow wherever you're listening to this podcast and check out our website too. That will be updated soon as well, guys. So looking forward to sharing that with you once it's ready. And again, enjoy this interview with Dr. Fotuhi. Good morning or good afternoon, Dr. Majid. It's a pleasure to have you here on the show today. How are you?
It's my pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
All the way from Washington. Neurologist.
Yes, I'm a neurologist and a professor at Johns Hopkins.
You've been leading the research in this field for 35 years, I see.
That's right.
What got you into neurology?
I became fascinated with the brain when I was a kid. My father talked to me about how there is no limit in what our brain can do. And in college, I took some courses in physiological psychology, and I just fell in love with how the brain works. And then I went on to receive my PhD at Johns Hopkins and medical school at Harvard, and then went back to Hopkins for residency in neurology. And I kept enjoying reading about the brain and seeing patients with brain-related issues, and went on to specialize in memory and Alzheimer's disease and have written 4 books.
Yeah.
And I love doing that every day, reading about the brain and talking about the brain. It's always fascinating.
From a young age, that's incredible, huh?
Mm-hmm.
To be fascinated by the brain. Well, good on you. And I mean, for me, I think you have to be fairly intelligent to be able to understand the brain and all the workings there. And I suppose my question for you, over 35 years, what has been some of the most groundbreaking changes you've seen in the research on the brain?
Our understanding of how the brain works and what happens to the brain with aging has evolved significantly. We now believe that much of what happens to the brain with aging can be reversed, or at least can be slowed down.
Right. Okay. So is that just from better technology and better science that we can understand these things better?
A lot of people have been participating in observational studies. And so researchers have been able to see what happens to people, for example, who drink alcohol on a regular basis and those who don't. What happens to people who smoke and those who don't? What happens to those who eat a Mediterranean diet versus the fast food standard American diet? And what happens to people who have a sedentary lifestyle, and what happens to the people who exercise regularly?
Right.
These studies showed that lifestyle choices make a big difference in human brain. And then randomized controlled studies have shown that if you put a group of people on an exercise program and a similar group of people on just, reading or just relaxing and not exercising, the group that exercises performs better on tests of cognition, and their MRIs show that there's an increase in the volume of brain areas that are important for learning and memory.
The hippocampus.
The hippocampus, yeah.
Right. Well, first of all, let's just talk about your book, because you've written 4 books now, and the latest book out is The Invincible Brain, which was released this year, I believe. So congratulations on your 4th book. So The Invincible Brain, a clinical proven plan to age-proof your brain and stay sharp for life. So I think a lot of people would appreciate a book like this, particularly in this day and age, potentially as well. Going back to those studies where you're looking at someone who lives a sedentary life and someone who's quite active, and the improvement on their brain cognition, how are those studies carried out? Because like my grandma, she wasn't that active later in life, and she lived for a, ripe old age, and she seemed to have really good cognitive function and memory, and maybe there was other aspects of that as well. Whereas I've known some active people, very active people that have, got Alzheimer's quite early on and faded due to that as well. So how do you, assess these studies with those things in mind?
Yes. So one thing that studies do is that they take an average. There are
Yeah,
always some outliers. So for
yeah,
example, we know that smoking is harmful for you, and it can increase the risk of lung cancers and heart attacks. There's
mm,
indisputable evidence that smoking kills you.
mm,
However, every once in a while you see someone in his 90s who smokes a pack a day.
yeah,
And the question is like, what happened to them?
yeah,
Why are they alive in the first place?
yeah,
And that's where taking average makes sense because
yeah,
each person has a genetic background which can influence their uh, health in general.
mm,
Much of what happens to you is determined with your lifestyle choices, but genes play a role as well. We think that what happens to you is about 30% due to your genetic makeup and 70% due to environment and your lifestyle choices.
okay,
So there are people who just have really great genes and they do everything wrong and they still seem to be functioning well, and the opposite happens as well. However, just like smoking is bad for you, and you can't really bet on the fact that you may be among the lucky few who have just the perfect longevity genes and smoking won't kill them. Unless you know that that's your case, you really shouldn't gamble and
yeah,
smoke.
yeah,
Um, and sedentary lifestyle is as bad as smoking
yeah,
because your brain and your body thrive when there's increased blood flow. And things that increase blood flow are walking, running, swimming, rowing, hiking, things that
yeah,
increase your muscle activity. And now, what's exciting is that exercise can actually cause the generation of new neurons in the hippocampus. This is called neurogenesis. And the more
right,
fit you are, the larger is your hippocampus, and the more you exercise, the more neurons you have in your hippocampus. This
right,
has been shown in animal studies, and we have evidence in humans that this ability to generate new neurons does not fade as you grow older. Even people in their late 70s and early 80s have evidence of generation of new neurons in their hippocampus.
okay,
So I exercise mostly because I know it's good for my brain. I talk about 5 pillars of brain health in my book.
yeah,
There are 5 things that are no-brainers, that are
yeah.
really good for you,
No brainers.
indisputable.
Yeah,
And those 5 things are exercise, optimal sleep, Mediterranean type diet, stress reduction, and brain training. If you
okay,
do those 5 things, you increase your chances of staying sharp in your 80s. We talk about becoming a brain superager. And
yeah,
I know that based on science, this is what happened to you on average.
yeah,
So I think the good thing about these 5 pillars is that 4 of them also are things that are good for your heart, for your skin, for your eyes, and for every other organ, for your sex organs, for your bones, muscles. Exercise, optimal sleep, optimal nutrition, and low stress are good for every part of your body.
yeah,
And if you want to live longer, you need to do those 4 as a regular part of your lifestyle.
okay,
And the fifth one, brain training and challenging your brain, is unique to your brain.
yeah,
So when you do Sudoku or when you learn something new, your liver and your heart and your skin and your bones don't benefit as much.
okay,
But the other 4 things are good for all of your body parts.
yeah. So we'll go into a couple of those, or maybe all of them individually, but just going back to, you talk about new neurons being created in the hippocampus, is that right?
Hmm.
Is
Hmm.
that the only section that we're concerned about here for cognitive functioning and reducing risk of Alzheimer's?
So there's a part of the brain called the cortex, which is the outer layer of the brain.
Yeah.
It is like a blanket that covers all other brain areas. And then inside it, there's an area the size of your thumb called hippocampus, one on the
Yeah.
right, one on the left.
Okay.
So the cortex and the hippocampus mediate your higher cognitive abilities, your ability to read, write, type, drive, use AI, run a podcast, do your taxes. All your cognitive abilities depend heavily on cortex and hippocampus, more so than the deeper parts of your brain that
Okay.
have different functions. Now, the cortex and hippocampus have the highest degree of malleability, which means that they can change almost on a daily basis. We know for a fact that those five pillars of brain health can make a difference in your brain size in a matter of 3 months, for better or for worse.
Yeah.
So if you exercise vigorously for 3 months, you can see those areas grow. And if you're sedentary and you don't do anything, your rate of atrophy with aging is faster.
So is that is
So
that is that the neurons dying off in those areas as opposed to new neurons being created? Is that how that works?
yeah, you're asking excellent questions, Lee. So there are four things that happen that can move the brain one way or the other.
Uh-huh.
One is inflammation. For example, poor diet
Yeah.
and sedentary lifestyle can increase inflammation. The other thing is blood flow. A lot of things like diet and exercise and even sleep can impact the level of blood flow in the brain. The third thing is your brain waste management system called the glymphatic system. This system works best during deep sleep. And so when you don't get enough deep sleep, the rinsing of the brain doesn't happen well. And
Right.
as a result, the toxic byproducts of chemical reactions accumulate and can harm the brain. And lastly are the levels of these proteins called amyloid, which are uh, biomarkers for Alzheimer's disease. So, for example, when you don't get enough sleep, the amyloid levels accumulate because part of the rinsing is to rinse out amyloid. And so when you don't rinse the brain, amyloid builds up. And when you have obesity, the amyloid levels build up. So the four things that can either harm the brain or grow the brain are inflammation, blood flow, brain waste management system, and levels of amyloid.
Okay. That amyloid, does that build up and calcify, or does it block neural pathways? Like, how does that
Mm.
become a problem?
So amyloid exists in our brains as a natural protein
Uh-huh.
involved in synaptic communication. So it's a normal part of our brain operation. For some reason, and that's the billion-dollar question, this protein has a tendency to aggregate. And there are things that cause it to aggregate. For example, if the rinsing doesn't happen, the levels go up. And just like if you have a lot of salt and you keep increasing the amount of salt in water, that it becomes crystallized.
Mm.
And so the amyloid levels usually rinse out, rinse out, rinse out. But when the amyloid levels accumulate, they aggregate, they
Right.
stick together, and they
Yeah.
become like a piece of gum. And that is problematic because when they become insoluble, they attract inflammation. And inflammation causes the synapses to die. It affects neurons. It reduces the number of synapses and connections and dendrites. And so the amyloid by itself is not as harmful. It's the inflammation
Right.
around the amyloid that seems to be causing the problem.
And I suppose that inflammation then affects the blood flow as well, which
Hmm.
is also a problem
Yeah.
for our brain to replenish and
Yes.
use its own waste management system.
And the
Okay.
same
So,
things apply to your skin.
right.
Sun exposure and poor sleep and lack of exercise and lack of hydration. can cause some level of inflammation under your skin, which accelerates aging. And a lot of things that are good for your skin and for your eye and for your heart and for your kidney and for your liver are the same things. What most people don't appreciate is that what happens to your body below your neck also happens to your brain above your neck. And so your brain is unique and special because of the way it's connected, the way it's set up. However, brain cells are cells and they have this essential needs and essential characteristics that are similar to the cells in your heart and your skin and bones and everywhere else. And
Yeah.
whatever you do that's healthy, that reduces inflammation and increases blood flow, is going to help all your body organs.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So we talk about the five pillars of brain health: fitness, sleep, nutrition, mindset, and brain training. Let's delve into a few of those individually. And I mean, fitness, we know, fitness is good for you. Um, and I guess you could, probably talk about different types of fitness activities that are good. But with your research, what are the optimal strategies that we could use to help improve our fitness and, improve brain cognition?
I think the most important thing is to do something. A lot of people feel like they have to go to a gym and sign up for programs or take classes or schedule something with a coach. My suggestion is to just do it.
Let's
Go
do
for a
it.
walk, go for a 10-minute walk. Any exercise is better than nothing. And so many studies have shown that the most benefit happens when somebody is inactive and starts doing things. That's the biggest benefit that you get. And then if you go from low level activity to medium to high level activity, you also have a lot of benefits: increased blood flow, reduce inflammation, neurogenesis. But if you're already an athlete and then you go the next level, you only have slight increase in terms of brain benefits. The brain benefits plateau if you're already exercising, let's say 1 hour, 4 times a week, and you do 2 hours, 4 times a week, you don't double the benefits for the brain.
Yeah. Okay. So do something, start somewhere, I guess is the message there. I suppose, the digital age that we live in now, you've got all these things getting thrown at you, and some are quite over the top as to what you do. And now there's a lot of, messages coming up saying just 7 minutes a day and you can, be super, super fit. We don't often talk about fitness as it relates to brain health. We talk about fitness as it relates to how you look. And maybe that's a good intrinsic motivator for people to get started. But obviously, there's some significant benefits around the brain improvement as well. Is there a level of fitness that becomes too much for the body and maybe reverses optimization?
I think people argue that when athletes do ultra marathons where they run for like 100 kilometers, or if they do Ironman where they just exercising for like 20 hours, that's extreme.
Yeah,
And you can't do controlled studies because a person who's capable of doing those things is not a regular person
yeah,
anyway. You can't have a control study and say, okay, you do it Ironman and you don't do it, and then we'll see. Because at baseline, those people are not necessarily the same.
yeah,
Ability to do Ironman, it's pretty difficult thing to do. So I don't worry about that because I think, only a small percentage of people have to worry about doing ultra marathons
yeah,
and Ironman. I think an average person should plan to be active, walk 3,000 to 5,000 steps a day, and plan to do about 3 hours of exercise. It could be a game of tennis, pickleball, swimming, hiking, or it could be things like dancing or housework. I mean, if you do housework and you have to load the laundry machine and, vacuum and, that's exercise because, you're constantly moving and lifting
yeah,
and doing things.
yeah. I'd almost recommend that, you do your daily stuff as you do, like house chores and all that sort of thing, but then add those extra bits on. And walking, like the benefits of walking. A lot of people think walking's, it seems so easy, but there's some remarkable evidence of, the health benefits of walking alone.
Yes. Walking has been shown to reduce the risk of Alzheimer's disease by 50%. So if you walk 3,000 steps a day, it's good. It's bare minimum. I mean, 5,000 is great, and 7,000 is wonderful. But if you do walk 10,000 steps a day, you reduce the risk of Alzheimer's disease by 50%. That's
And
10,000 steps, like five times a week. Now, again, you don't have to, like that's about the 4 or 5 miles. You don't have to walk that much every day. Um, I think again, 3,000 to 5,000 steps is great. What's interesting is that when you walk every day, you reduce the biomarkers for Alzheimer's disease. And, I think it's possible that when you walk, you increase blood flow, and the blood flow helps to clear some of the inflammation as it flows to the brain. It sort of picks up the inflammatory molecules and rinse them out. So I think if you can just walk 1 or 2 miles a day, that would be wonderful.
yeah. Yeah, good to know. So really, when we're talking about fitness, we're talking about getting the blood flow up and working and pumping through the body to help reduce inflammation, which will ultimately help improve cognitive function and brain health.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Sleep. Lots of talk about sleep recently.
Yes. Sleep is one of those things that is often misunderstood. A lot of people think that sleeping is a waste of time. You just lie down and nothing happens. And in reality, much of the rinsing that happens in the brain happens during deep sleep. Your memories are consolidated, your brain is cleaned, your emotional centers are settled, and your brain goes to a recovery mode during deep
Yeah.
sleep. And actually, your muscles also go through recovery mode when you're sleeping. So sleep is extremely important. It's not like you're sleeping there, nothing is happening. A lot is happening. Imagine if the garbage collection doesn't happen in Tokyo at
Mm,
night. Imagine the mess that people have to deal with in the morning. And imagine if the garbage collection is down by 50% over a month. The whole city would shut down because of all the accumulated junk in every street corner and the load of garbage. Something similar happens in the brain. If you're sleeping fewer than 6 hours a night, you don't have enough time to rinse your brain.
mm,
And if it happens once or twice, it's okay. But if it's something that has happened to you for years, then you'll have dire consequences. In people who have insomnia for 1 or 2 years, the size of the hippocampus, which is roughly the size of your thumb, is normal. But when people have insomnia for 20 years, the hippocampus is almost half the size of its original size.
wow.
So you really need to make sleep a priority. A lot of people feel they can just cut the amount of sleep so that they can be more productive and get more things done.
Mm.
However, cutting the corners will have consequences later for your brain.
So, what are some of the sleep strategies to boost deep sleep? Well, actually, what the first question I should ask is how much deep sleep is good?
I think you can plan to you need to sleep 7 to 8 hours a night.
7 to 8 hours a
Seven
night.
hours in
Yeah.
general, yeah. And your brain goes through this cycle. So it goes to a light sleep and it go deep sleep and then it come back up and they go deep and it come back up. And most of the deep sleep happens in early parts of the night.
Yeah.
Um, and so don't worry about measuring it. Just make sure because you have no control on what portion of your sleep is deep sleep. You just worry about sleeping and your brain will take care of the time that it needs to be on each stage of sleep. So sleep 7 to 8 hours. My experience in taking care of patients has been that many people feel sleeping problems are normal, that everybody else has sleep problems and I have sleep problems. So it is what it is. Like everybody else has stress and I'm stressed. So it is what it is.
Hmm.
You should realize that sleep can be improved and there are simple things you could do. For example, you shouldn't drink caffeinated beverages in the afternoon. You should make sure that the bedroom is dark and quiet. You should make sure that the mattress is comfortable. And you should not bring sport equipment or your computer or other things in your bedroom. Your bedroom needs to be a serene, quiet place just to sleep or
Mm.
read. And if you have a pet which wakes you up every night, you need to figure out a system that that doesn't happen. You need to train your pet or figure out a way that you sleep at night and you don't let your dog wake you up multiple times during the night, or your spouse. Sometimes, somebody sleep together, the spouse snores and or the spouse moves a lot and the other person can't sleep. If that's the case, you need to draw a line in the middle of the bed. You say you stay on your side, and if the person snores, you push them to fix it because that's a brain killer in of itself. And it still doesn't work. One person needs to sleep in the guest room.
Yep.
And you can't just, we know some people who one of the husband snores and the wife has been complaining about him snoring for 20 years. It's like, you guys are smart, figure it out. You need to figure out a system. It's not okay for a person to prevent the other person not to sleep.
Yeah.
So the point is you need to make sleep a priority. It's not okay because missing a night's sleep is not just a one night's problem, it's cumulative problem that can lead to increased risk for Alzheimer's disease.
Yeah. 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 Okay. So dark environment, cool environment, comfortable position, low disturbance, I suppose. No technology. Probably the killer for most people. And so, do you measure like deep sleep in people? Like, do you know like the optimal deep sleep for a 7, 8 hour shift?
No, I think, again, the sleep goes through cycles, and each cycle could be 45 minutes. And when it goes down, the deepest sleep, it could be in a deep sleep for 20 minutes or 30 minutes, and
Yeah.
that can happen 3 times a night. And
Yeah.
people are different, like, older adults, for example, people in their 70s and 80s, they don't have as much deep sleep.
Hmm.
And they can't, I mean, it's not something they have control over. What you have control over is at what time you go to bed and what time you wake up. So
Curious.
make sure you have a regular bedtime so that you go up to bed every night at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, whatever it's usually do, and make sure you wake up at the same time every day.
Hmm. Hmm. I wonder why older people don't have as much deep sleep. Is it because they don't have as much waste build up because they're in a different part of their
No,
life or?
I think that's unresolved question.
Uh-huh.
I think something happens with physiology of what happens with the brain. I have Actually, I need to look that up. I wonder if people who have a more fit lifestyle, people who eat well, exercise well, and do everything else well, have more of deep sleep when they get older. The
Hmm.
one thing that's interesting is that in several wealthy Western European countries, the incidence of Alzheimer's disease is going down. With each new generation, older people are living longer and are pushing back the age at which they develop Alzheimer's disease.
Right.
And so it will be interesting to see in this new generation of older adults if the deep sleep is longer than people who have,
What's it
developed
correlated to?
dementia earlier. Yeah. In general,
Interesting.
I think um, you need to make a you need to make a sleep a priority.
Hmm. Yep. 100% nutrition. You talked a lot about Mediterranean diets. I mean, and there's so many different diets and things to do with your body. My personal experience is I sort of eat based on what I've experimented that makes me feel good, and I've adjusted over the last 40 years, trying everything.
What do you
Um,
eat?
well, at the moment, I try and eat, some protein. So I'll eat some eggs for breakfast, maybe some fish or some steak. I don't eat too many carbs during the day. I still like cooking. I'm a big cook, so I'll still have a nice pasta meal a couple of times a week, or some rice. But I try to avoid the carbs and just eat more protein during the day. But I have gone through a stage where I was pretty much all plants. Um, and that was quite good too. So they all seem to work, but for their own purposes. And it's a convenience thing sometimes too.
I think what is bad for your brain, and nobody would argue with, is eating highly processed food and food that spike your sugar level. There may be
Right.
some controversy on whether it's good to be vegetarian or have a keto diet. And I think it has to do with individual differences. Some
Yeah.
people function
Yeah.
better on a vegetarian diet versus a keto diet. And I think you've done the right thing to experiment with yourself, see what food makes you feel better. And that's
Mm.
the food that's right for you. However, nobody argues that French fries, donuts, cookies, muffins, chips, things that come in boxes and bags that have been sitting in store shelves for weeks and weeks are bad for you. Nobody
Yeah.
argues with that. It's
Yeah.
not controversial.
Yeah.
And I really emphasize the fact that you should not eat junk food. You can eat whatever you want as long as it's not junk food.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's a good rule. Like just nothing processed. The more fresh ingredients you can eat, the better you're going to be.
Exactly.
And a good
Mhm.
balance too. Question I have is around fruit, actually. Like I don't eat much fruit myself, but there's some people that just love fruit. And I see that as just a sugar spiker as well. And that we don't
I
necessarily need that
know.
much. But, fruits have a lot of good values too.
Yes, the mistake that people make sometimes is to think that fruits are good, so they can just enjoy it. I love watermelon, and I remember sometimes in the summer I would sit and have a whole big bowl of watermelon by myself in a hot summer day. But it's a lot of sugar. I mean, it is delicious, it's healthy, but at the end of the day, you consume maybe like 600, 700 calories without any protein in it. So I think you need to keep in mind that just because something is healthy, you can't just have endless amount of it. Like, I also love grapes. I love grapes. And then, you should have like a, a handful of grapes. But sometimes, a person may finish 2 pounds of grapes in one sitting, and that's not optimal.
Yeah, yeah.
However, I much rather people eat a pound of grapes than a pound of cookies,
Mm.
which is really
Yeah,
toxic for the brain.
yeah, yeah, 100%. And you talk about caffeine, no caffeine related to sleep anyway, but caffeine generally is okay. What about things like alcohol? Because you always see the science
Yeah.
studies saying, oh, now they're saying 2 glasses of wine a night is good. I like to drink myself, but I really believe that no alcohol is probably best.
A lot of studies with caffeine and alcohol are based on observational research. In other words, people say how much they've been drinking, and then researchers to see what happened to their brain. It's not the same thing as doing a randomized control trial where
No.
you give some people, there have been some randomized control studies for both caffeine and alcohol, but you can't do a randomized control trial for 20 years because, you can do it 6 months, a year, but not 5 years. You can't keep two groups of people on a regimen like no alcohol or, a specific amount of alcohol for that time. So the one thing is clear, too much alcohol is not good for you,
Yeah.
and too much caffeine is not good for you. In general, I think if you have 1 or 2 cups coffee a day, that's great. Don't worry about it, whether it increases your risk of Alzheimer's disease or whether it helps you stay sharper. Just enjoy your coffee. And the second thing with alcohol is that, as you said, it's perhaps best to not drink alcohol at all. But if you go to social gatherings once or twice a week and have a couple of drinks, and each time for a total of about 4 glasses of alcohol in a week, I think that's okay.
Mm.
That's what
Okay.
I do. I usually, well, and I also tell my patients, you have to earn your alcohol, you have to have done your exercise and you have to have slept well and, you have had a good nutrition and you keep your stress down and you've done brain training, you've done the 5 pillars of brain health, you earn your alcohol. But if you
Yeah.
haven't done them, then you shouldn't drink alcohol at all.
Would you?
Sometimes when I had older adults who came to see me, let's say 72-year-old would come and say, my memory is bad, I'm forgetting things. And I would ask how much you drink. They say, oh, I just drink like 2 or 3 glasses of wine and maybe a couple of stiff scotch. And I say, listen, you have to stop drinking altogether. I taper it and I say you have to have 0 drops of alcohol, none whatsoever. And in my experience, a substantial number of patients actually feel sharper after 2, 3 months of not drinking. They are a little sharper.
Yeah, yeah.
So You should drink if you have no other problems. If you have memory problems, not a drop of alcohol.
Hmm.
But if you've done everything right and you enjoy life and you're in good shape and you're sharp, yeah, enjoy your alcohol.
Okay. Would you relate it to like sugary treats as well? Like, having a big piece of chocolate cake or an ice cream, on a special occasion rather than every day.
Yes,
That's okay as
yes,
well.
yes, you have to enjoy life. I think you have to enjoy your day-to-day life while you're building a healthier body and brain for the future.
Hmm.
And you can have your ice cream once in a while. I mean, don't drink ice cream with every meal and don't have a sugary dessert with lunch and dinner. You can have a nice piece of chocolate. Actually, dark chocolate that has cocoa, 70% cocoa, it's good for you. There's some studies that showed, again, association that people who have dark chocolate seems to have better circulation in the brain.
Right.
So, so a little piece of chocolate or a little piece of sweet occasionally, it's good as long as you've done everything else right. So if you
Yeah.
haven't done your exercise and you've had you know, a hamburger with French fries, then no, don't, don't, mess up
And
things worse.
how would you compare like alcohol and sugar side by side? Is one worse than the other? Because
Yeah, they're both bad. I don't think, I think they're both terrible for the brain. Sugar spikes are bad for the brain. So if you have an apple, your sugar levels go up slowly.
Mhm.
But if you have a donut or a cookie, your sugar levels spike. It's
Yeah.
a spike in sugar that seems to be bad. But if something increases your sugar level slowly, like fruits do in general,
Hmm.
then the sugar is not as harmful.
No, that's helpful. Okay. Want to move along with mindset strategies to improve brain functioning. I do a lot of meditation. I assume you do as well. What do you recommend for us in that section?
I think people need to appreciate that when they are stressed, cortisol levels in their blood increase, and the spike in cortisol levels kills the neurons in the hippocampus. So let me give you a story. I have two daughters in college, and one of them, the younger one, was in elementary school once, and I told her, honey, you have to write this review about the book in 2 days, and you haven't even started reading the book. And she had come to some of my lectures and she knew a little bit about what I do. And she said, Dad, you're stressing me out, and that's not good for my hippocampus. So
Hmm.
from early on, she had learned that stress is really bad for the brain. And and I think it's a good thing to keep in mind that anything that stresses out is harmful to your hippocampus, which means you're at higher risk of developing memory loss and Alzheimer's disease decades later.
What
In
is that
contrast,
cortisol? What is the cortisol doing to reduce that?
so cortisol um, has there are receptors for cortisol in hippocampus a lot more than there are receptors for cortisol elsewhere in the brain. Now, why that is, we don't know. But hippocampus in particular is very sensitive to cortisol,
Right.
just the way it is.
Okay.
Now,
Hmm.
meditation has been shown to increase the size of hippocampus. So if you get a group of people and have them meditate for 30 minutes, 4 times, 5 times a week, and then have a group that just sits and listens to music, very comparable group of in age. The group that meditates regularly has a slight increase in the size of hippocampus that you can measure on MRI.
Right.
Even slow breathing exercises can help to increase the size of the hippocampus.
Okay.
It's surprising how easy it is to increase the size of the hippocampus. I mean, it's so easy to shrink it. Like you're stressed out, you have a poor diet, you don't exercise, it shrinks. But you do a lot of exercise and you make sure you sleep well and you do meditate and is measurable increase in the size of the campus.
Yeah. Okay. And then brain training activities, like you mentioned Sudoku before, those things are
Yeah.
good. Crosswords.
Mhm. Yeah. So when you do things that challenge your brain, the cortex hippocampus grow. Like if you learn a new language, if you learn how to play golf, if you take a dance class regularly for 6 months or a year, we can see the parts of the cortex and hippocampus which were particularly engaged increase in size. Just like if you exercise and work on your biceps or your core muscles, they increase in size. When you challenge them, they grow. The same applies in your brain. When you challenge the specific parts of your brain, they grow.
Mm-hmm.
And the larger the cortex and hippocampus, the more resilient they will be against the effects of Alzheimer's disease decades later.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay, so these are some really good things. For someone out there that's maybe more curious, obviously you can improve these 5 pillars and probably notice the effects naturally and how it makes you feel. But are there any things we can do to measure like brain activity or anything you'd suggest there, or is it that's not necessary?
I think a good measure of how your brain is performing is how you experience your brain functions in daily life.
Yeah.
Do you feel more forgetful or less forgetful?
Right.
There are questionnaires. I have developed an online course and an online app for free. They're available in the App Store and on my website. In the App Store is the Invincible Brain.
Yep.
So if you go there, there are 3 questionnaires that ask you about brain fitness, severity of cognitive symptoms, and some severity of emotional and behavioral symptoms. There are 3 questionnaires. Each one takes about 3 minutes. And then you get a score from 1 to 100, and you get areas that are more pertinent to you. So you may have more memory problems and not so much problem, for example, with navigation. And then you do this interventions for 5 pillars of brain health for 12 weeks, and then you do these questionnaires again. And then you don't remember the answers that you gave 12 weeks earlier. And you just from 1 to 10, how bad is your memory? 1 to 10, how bad is your navigation? And then you can see for yourself how you have improved.
Mm-hmm.
And again, these are for free. They're also available on my website, drfotuhi.com. It's drfotuhi.com. And all of these things, all the questionnaires and all the information I've been telling you are in my book, The Invincible Brain.
Yeah. This is good. Got the website here, so I'll make sure I get those links in the show notes, guys. Check it out. So 12-week course we can look at
Yes,
testing ourselves at the start and at the end. Did you say also in the
yes,
middle as well?
yes. So the way I did it in my program for my patients, we did a baseline 6 weeks and 12 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And so the app allows you to do the questionnaires at baseline, at 6 weeks, and at 12 weeks.
Right.
And then everything is graphed so you can see how your score is improving.
Okay. Excellent.
You can log in every week to put your information, and then you can see how your scores improve every week.
Okay. To tackle this 12-week course, what's your advice? Like, is it overwhelming for people, or have you made it really simple so people can just jump in and
Yes, I have made them very simple. For one thing, I have the free online masterclass that has 18 5 or 6 minute videos that are easy to watch. So
yeah,
there's a lot more information about everything we talked about. And then doing the program is very easy. You just make a list of all the things. When you do the questionnaires, you get a report. You get a 10-page report with specific things you need to do.
yeah,
So, for
perfect.
example, for you, it may be that you need to do more brain training, for example, and then it gives you specific things that what to do to increase based on these questionnaires.
Yeah.
Uh, and so it should be easy to do. And again, it's free, and um, I've had so far about 1,000 people who have done it.
What's your goal? I mean, doing this for free, obviously you've studied the brain ever since you were a little kid and obviously you're very passionate about it. What's your intent with doing this? Because it's
I
quite
think,
a nice thing to be offering.
yeah, I have been taking care of a lot of older adults, and I loved it when I saw my patients turn around in 12 weeks. It was so rewarding to see somebody come and say, Dr. Fotuhi, this was the best thing I've ever done, or this is the best thing I have done for my spouse. And that gives me pleasure to see people feel better about themselves. And, one thing I talk about in the book and in the online course and everywhere else is having a sense of purpose helps us stay sharper longer.
Yeah.
When you have a sense of purpose and do things that are aligned with what you find meaningful, your brain is healthier and more resilient against the effects of Alzheimer's disease.
Yeah.
So I'm selfish in that I do things that bring joy to me and other people enjoy as well. So it's a win-win
Yeah,
situation.
absolutely. I love it. And I didn't ask the question, this is the last question I promise today, but on technology, AI, mobile phones, devices, do you put much emphasis on that space in your research at the moment? Or is that still to come?
I think people need to make sure to challenge their brain every day. It's easy to just ask AI to do everything for you, and that has the risk of shrinking the parts of the brain that now you're not using. See, in old days, people used to have a map and had to figure out where to go,
Yeah.
and people would memorize phone numbers. And so we have lost those cognitive skills as a whole society everywhere in the world, well, most places in the world. And that's unfortunate because those parts of the brain now have shriveled at a societal level. And I think it's important to be mindful of the fact that if you don't use parts of your brain, you lose them. Your brain's like a muscle. Use it or lose it.
Yeah.
And so you don't want to lose brain areas that are so important for many cognitive abilities.
Mm.
It's not to say don't use AI, don't use technology, but always engage and do your part while you also use technology. For example, when I have to go somewhere, I figure out where I have to go. I decide the path, the roads I'm going to use to get there. And then I check to see what the GPS would say, whether GPS agrees with me or whether GPS gives me better options. And if the
Yeah.
GPS gives me a better option, then I remember it and turn it off, and then I use that, you know.
That, yeah.
Same thing with memorizing phone numbers, memorizing names. I try to memorize names, memorize phone numbers. I memorize my credit card numbers.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, they're all things that we just sort of take for granted nowadays, don't we? We don't even bother to try, but good
Mhm.
practices to get into. Dr. Fatuhi, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. Really appreciate the conversation. Inspirational, and I'm going to stick the links in the show notes so people can jump on to the website. There's the Invincible Brain Masterclass there as well as the app, which you can get all for free. So fantastic opportunity for people to, 12-week program. Makes sense.
Yes, yes,
So appreciate you sharing, mate. Thank you.
my pleasure. Thanks again for inviting me, Lee.
Guys, check it out at thehiddenwhy.com. Until next time, peace, passion, and purpose. See you soon. Thank you. Okay, that's a wrap. Thank you so much for tuning in this week to this interview. I hope you enjoyed the conversation we had. Make sure you check it out at thehiddenwhy.com for all the show notes and links to our guest. And if you have any comments, any suggestions for the show, please make sure you reach out as well. Also, would like to just ask a favor. If you do like what you're listening to, if you love what you're hearing, make sure you subscribe. Whether you're listening to this on iTunes, wherever it might be, subscribe to the podcast so you can stay up to date with all the latest episodes and some exciting changes happening this year at The Hidden Why, including the launch of our new website, which will be updated very soon. So watch this space for that, guys. And once again, live more fully, have more meaning, find more joy. We'll see you around the next interview.